Have you ever been very hungry and then been there at the feast and there were just so many wonderful things that were attracting you to eat first? There was the samosas, there was the chutney, there was the sweet rice, there was the ladus. And you didn't really know where to begin. You just kind of wanted to eat it all at once and lots of it, but you couldn't do that. You know that feeling? You just don't know where to begin. So I find Krishna consciousness to be quite a bit like that. There is so much to do. There is so much to read. There is so much to talk about. Sometimes I just don't know where to begin. So when remembering a personality like Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, it is also very much like that. Where to begin. So I'm going to begin by reading several of his praṇāma-mantras that are here in our songbook in translation. Actually, there are three or five. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupada, who is very dear to Sri Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daityadas, who is favored by Srimati Radharani, and who is the ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverer of the science of Krishna. Madhuryo Dvala Premadya Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who deliver devotional service, which is enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. Namaste Gauravani Sri Murtaye Dinatarane Rupanuga Virudha Appasiddhanta Dvanta Harane. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You are the deliverer of the fallen souls. You do not tolerate any statement which is against the teachings of devotional service enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. Nikila Bhunamaya Vichina Kartri Vibudha Bahura Mrigya Mukti Mohanta Datri Stilita Vidhi Raga Radhya Radeshadani Vilasatu Hridhi Nityam Bhakti Siddhantavani. With his first step, he cut to pieces the whole plane of exploitation. And with his second step, he crushed the speculation of scholars of salvation and liberation. With his third step, he softened Vaidhi Bhakti with a touch of divine love, Raga Marg. Taking us beyond Vaikuntha, he has introduced us to the highest worship of Sri Radha and Krishna. With the softness of Vrindavan within and the hardness of a devastator without, he created havoc in the world, fighting with one and all, single-handedly fighting against the whole world and cutting everything to pieces. That was his external attitude. And his second attitude was to stop the boasting research of the scholars and the doctors of different schools of thought. And third, to minimize and slacken the grandeur of the worship of Narayan and establish the service of Radha and Govinda as the highest attainment. He caused the domain of love to descend into this plane, with the service of Radha and Govinda, establishing the flow of divine love from the heart as all in all. That was his history, the real existence of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupada. May his teachings dance eternally within the core of our hearts. So how to understand these things? There are many volumes of books which one can spend years and years reading. And then on the other side there are simple mantras and simple prayers which just can be read in a few minutes. But the question is how to understand all these things. Volumes and volumes of books, how to really understand what is there. And again here in small brief prayers, how to really understand what is there. So the volumes and volumes of books are to explain something which is in the beginning very, very brief, very short. The books are volumes and volumes because those who have realized eternity, those who have realized the existence of the Supreme Lord, those who have realized the eternal world of the Supreme Lord, they endeavor to explain so many things to us to help us become free from the entanglement of this world and to enter in to the higher conscious world. So volumes and volumes and volumes become necessary for that. Volumes have been written in the past, yet volumes will be written into the future. Yet all along the way, people tend to trend to, okay, we have it. We've got it now. We've got those holy books. We don't need anything else. That's a trend. Generation after generation after generation. Well, our trend, or a trend now, or a trend a few years ago, or a trend in a few years like that, is no different than 100 years ago. After the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his followers said, that's all. This is all we need. What Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, that is enough. We don't need anything else. Yet we see since that time till now, which is just shy of 100 years, so many literatures have come forth. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. I don't believe Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta did, but Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj did. His own guru didn't comment on Bhagavad Gita, but he did. So in our present situation, if someone was to comment on a book, say that Śrīla Prabhupada didn't comment on, then one knee-jerk reaction from some people is, well, Prabhupada didn't comment on it. What is the importance of it? Another knee-jerk reaction is that if Prabhupada has commented on something like Bhagavad Gita and someone else does it, the knee-jerk reaction is, well, Prabhupada already did it. What is the need of another one? But if we follow that everything stops. And not just the production of literature stops. What actually stops is the dynamic search for the truth and the expression of one's realization, which is part of the search for truth, you see. At the same time, that doesn't mean that in the school of the students, every literature to come out is read by everybody and it's all just a carnival to take part in watch in. That is also not the way the schools of self-realization are conducted. So, but we're talking about a general principle that there must be dynamics in spiritual life. And all of these literatures are to explain what is that spiritual life. And how to become a living participant in that spiritual life. So although these prayers of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta are very brief and concise, they do contain the essence of what Krishna consciousness is really all about. And particularly this last one contains the essence of what Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta was really all about. What is her name? Raghunath's mother? Raghunath's mother? No. You know Raghunath, our friend Raghunath, the Gurukul boy Raghunath? Jagadatri. About a year or so back, or 2 years, whenever it was, when I was visiting in Hawaii. I spoke to her on the telephone, and there was some inquiry about philosophy and such, and so I recommended that she very closely study our basic songbook. Basic songbook. I said, but the real fact is the whole of the philosophy of the Gauḍīya Sampradaya is contained in the songbook. Just by reading the purports, not even all of it. I said, you only have to read about 10 or 15 pages. Actually, the whole of the siddhānta is couched in a very simplistic, very beautiful way in the various pranam prayers that are there in the Guru Parampara pranams. So, simply to memorize things, or simply to learn things, but not actually enter into any understanding, then that does not lead to self-realization. That may lead to pandita. What's pandita? Means great learning. You may be recognized as a great scholar, or you may get name and fame. So many things we may get from study. But study and actually understanding are two different things. A child in Krishna consciousness oftentimes surpasses people with a lifetime of study and learning in a very simple manner. They actually surpass them. For example, last year, one very big astrological guru came to Govindji Gardens. I think I told you the story before. Big astrological guru. He wanted to bathe in the Kaveri, so his friends, who are some of our friends, they arranged that he can have a calm, holy bath in the Kaveri at our ghats. And that gentleman spent about 2.5 hours at the Kaveri having a holy bath, and he's from Bangalore, and chanting his mantras and appreciating the beauty of Kaveri and all the things that come along with being on the bank of the Kaveri at Govindji Gardens. But this gentleman, as most Hindu spiritualists are, they are tinged, if not drowned, in impersonal conception, Mayavadi conception, of various shades. Some of them would be an absolute embarrassment to Shankaracharya. Their conception of it's all one is so ridiculous. But they all have some tinge of this. So this gentleman was no exception. So our boys went to swim there. A couple of our boys, Nandakishore's boys, Satyaraj and Keshava. They went to swim, and so they were told, well, you go down to the other ghat because that man is there with a few of his friends, and they're doing their pujas and meditation, so you swim somewhere else. So the boys were swimming, and this gentleman noticed them. And when they got near, he called them over and asked them, what is your, I forget exactly the sequence, but he asked them what their name was and this and that. And so Keshava's name is Keshava, one of the names of Krishna. So he heard his name, oh, you are just like Kṛṣṇa and Balaram. Then, and he said, then seeing you is just like seeing Kṛṣṇa and Balaram. So Keshava stepped up first and says, to see Kṛṣṇa and Balaram is not such a cheap thing. And simply seeing us is the same as seeing Kṛṣṇa Balaram. Then the man said, no, I mean you're like Kṛṣṇa Balaram. And then Satyaraj stepped forward at age 6 and said, we're not Kṛṣṇa and Balaram. You're also not God. You're a great fool. He jumped in the river. I mean, he had 500 people just waiting in the heat in Ganjam, standing around teeming in the heat, just waiting for him to leave so they could all come and follow his grace to the lecture hall, whatever he was going to say or do there. And Satyaraj at age 6 just called him out, said, actually, you're a great fool. I think they mentioned something about, you study so many things, but you don't know anything, So the perception of the innocent children sitting in some of my classes where I'll rail on the Mayavadis or Sai Baba or any of these things, and they just pick it up. Like when our deity was made of Yoga Narasingha, the small one. Keshava came in such earnestness and just asked, did the deity just appear for you? Or did somebody make it? And I said, if I said, somebody make it, well, I know what he has a concept of somebody makes it. And it may be too mundane, so I said no. The Lord appeared on his own accord. So I put it in the middle somewhere to keep high his understanding. If I say, yes, somebody made it, what's a child's understanding of somebody made it? He sees people making so many things, which may then deplete the understanding. But so anyway, children are very impressionable. So they picked up some of these very nice impressions. So then they went to Nandakishore and they told him, oh, Satyaraj told the man he's a great fool. He doesn't know anything. And we thought, oh boy. But as it turned out, he was quite a gentleman, and he was charmed by the straightforward innocence of the child. So he got a lesson from a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, although he was, nearly 47 and a great scholar of Sanskrit and various studies, and particularly Jyotish, astrology and things like that. So in our Western culture, there's such a thing. Sometimes the truth is spoken by those who are the most innocent, by children. They're not inhibited by things, and they will simply speak something of truth and of lesson even to the most wise, you see. Well, that is amplified thousands of times, that study without devotion, study without bhakti, never leads to truth. It may lead to one piece of knowledge after the next, but it never culminates in the truth. It just piles and piles and piles of knowledge, and it never culminates in anything. It simply goes on. It's like extrapolating, and it never comes back to any particular point. And the nature of that maya of knowledge is, if it ever does come to any point, it's usually the wrong one. So much study in the last couple of 100 years led the materialists, the scientists, to conclude there is no God, there is no soul, and we are all evolved from monkeys. We are all evolved from monkeys, and then we crawled around to different places around the earth. It led them to such thing. There is no life after death. There is no such thing as reincarnation. This was the result of so much study and knowledge over several centuries. But because that conclusion is so alien to the human experience, it boomerangs and it comes back towards that. Not due to their study. They have done nothing to study and discover the existence of the soul, the existence of God. But what they've been boomeranged with is that they can't drive this out of the human being. It's such a thing within human beings, despite all the upbringing and being told, people just turn and look to the sky and want to pray to God. So they've been forced back. It's not that their knowledge brought them back, actually. They've been forced by default to now examine some of these things, and it's going on. But my point is, just the accumulation of knowledge and study in the end may simply render one a great fool. But devotion, even if you don't have study, even if you don't have great knowledge, that may very, very easily bring you to the perfection of life. It is not necessary to become a great scholar of devotion, but it is necessary to become very devoted. You see? Do you follow what I'm saying? So Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta was indeed a great scholar. He was indeed a great scholar. He was a defender, as they say in English, a defender of the faith. And he came in the world at a time when the faith, the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, had been completely massacred over several centuries of malpractices and motivated activities. It had been completely almost completely eradicated. So much so that in the respectable communities in India, and let's say in eastern India, Assam, Bengal, all those areas of eastern India, Uttar Pradesh even, a follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was what would be a parallel today. It would just be whatever is strange and unwanted in society, which is immoral and has all bad practices and embarrassing. That was what the respectable people thought it meant to be a follower of Sri Chaitanya. They had completely spoiled everything in relation to the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Basically, it was considered to be like, an 18th century sex cult or something like that. That's what it was, a cult, which had no bearing on society, which had no contribution to society, and if it vanished, would be the best thing for society. That's how respectable people viewed these things. It was just so much spoiled. So, the defender of the faith, in that terminology, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, appeared in Jagannath Puri in 1974 as the fourth son of Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura. And from the very beginning of his birth, there were things which were extraordinary, out of the ordinary, small things, from his very birth. Even Prabhupada used to mention, and I guess it was known, because he was younger than Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, he wasn't there when he was born from his mother. He wasn't there, but apparently it was known by many. And who was there was his mother and his father. So this part of the story must have originally come from Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura himself. And that Bhaktisiddhānta was born a Brahmin. His umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck like a Brahmin's thread. So his father took notice of such a thing, which you would not pay any attention to, or it just may not be noticed. And maybe that could happen to other people, but when a succession of many things of that coincidence level build one upon the other, then our training is to understand that this is indicative. This is not just chance coincidence, but this is a sign, and it is indicative of something. Now that goes in both ways. You see bad, you see bad, you see bad, and then you should understand it is indicative of something bad. Some evil is lurking there. Something unwanted is there. We've seen it in people, even people close to this community. We've seen things over the past. Manifestations of little things, one thing after another, leading to more and more grievous things in the future. And in our life, we've seen that a lot. You see. Even we've seen people prone to death throughout their life in various ways, and then their life is cut very, very short. So this was on the good side. And then when he was just, when he was just very, very small, few months, he was about 5 months old, he received a garland from Lord Jagannath. When his mother placed him in front of the big Jagannath deity on the Rath cart, then a garland fell down. And Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura took a very special interest in that. When he was informed that while your son was in front of Jagannath, a garland snapped and fell down. And then at that point, he began to sit and consider, maybe the Supreme Lord has answered my prayers and sent me one who can really help me with the work at hand. So by the time he was 6 years old, he knew the whole Bhagavad Gita by heart. And not just by recitation, which is 1,800 slokas. Is it 1,800 slokas? No. 700 slokas. Bhagavatam is 18,000 slokas. 700 slokas. Not that he just knew it by heart, as many children learn. He knew it with some meaning. Of course, as he matured, that meaning became more profound. His understanding became very, very deeper and deeper. So, from his early youth, he showed a great interest in all things spiritual, all things divine. And he was very intelligent, very quick to learn, and all these things. And in those days in India, it was quite a bit different than it is now. And I've only glimpsed the end of that era, say 20 years back. The interest of people, what people did, was so different than what it is today. And one of the things that was very, very strong in his time was young men particularly had an interest in philosophy. Philosophy. And there were groups all across India. They call them samajas. And they were philosophically based. Sometimes they still exist in South India. Centered around the study of Sanskrit in different places like Udupi and all. But at that time, all across India, all through Rajasthan, up into Kashmir, there were schools, there were groups, samajas, and they were filled with many young people. And they had deep philosophical interests based on the Vedas, Vedanta, Upanishads, and other Vedic literatures. So, philosophy is a battlefield. Philosophy is not like cooking or something. Cooking doesn't fight with anything. Cooking simply produces something that is palatable, more or less palatable to all. But philosophy fights. The nature of philosophy is it establishes a truth above another truth. A level of truth is surpassed by a superior level of truth. Or a so-called level of truth is exposed to just be a plane of ignorance. Or so many things like that. But the nature of philosophy, it's just not sweet talk. The real philosophy fights with opposing conception. And Śrīla Prabhupada, he used to say, real preaching means fighting. Real preaching doesn't mean just patronizing. Either way, patronizing. It doesn't mean that. It means fighting. Fighting against what? Against ignorance. Against misconception. In the time of Śrīla Prabhupada, people used to say, or it was a current thing around in the 60s, there is no God, and if there was, he's dead by now. And Prabhupada, he wanted to fight with that. You say he is dead. I have seen him face to face and recently. So he wanted to fight with that propaganda. They say there is no God. We have no proof. So he countered and said, you say you went to the moon. I say you didn't. What's your proof? They say, here's a picture. He goes, here's a picture of Kṛṣṇa. Well, here's our articles produced by NASA. Here's our books produced by the Parampara. He just met them head on. And in one conversation in Australia, when he, conceded, not conceded, but like said, yes, if they went to the moon, something like that, like giving some credence. And the devotees, but Prabhupada, you've been so adamant for years that they didn't go, but now you're saying they may have gone. He said, yes, just to give them trouble. I have said like that. They say there is no God, and they don't accept what we say in our proof. Why do we accept what they say in their proof? Argumentum bacildum, it's called. It's just like meet a stick with a stick, fire with fire. In battle, you meet cannon with cannon. So what has to be done? You do that as the nature of the fighting. There's a principle, a logic there. They don't accept our pramana, our evidence. We don't accept theirs. Why would you take you at your word? You don't take us at our word. I'm saying we have seen Kṛṣṇa. Our gurus have seen Kṛṣṇa. Prabhupada himself is saying, I have seen. You don't take me at my word. Why I should take you at your word? You have seen the moon. Who cares for what you say? So the nature of preaching, nature of philosophy, not that every step of the way it's just fighting, but it does have that. You see, it has that fighting nature. And that's why it is expressed here in this prayer about the existence of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. With his first step, he cut to pieces. Cut to pieces means destroyed. He cut to pieces the whole plane of exploitation. In his second step, he crushed. So most people would not understand what this means. Most people would not understand what this means, because people just have this idea that a saint must be very soft-spoken. He must be, like popular now is, he must laugh a lot. There are certain saints in the world, Dalai Lama and others. They laugh a lot when they talk. If you listen closely, they rarely say anything of depth. Every once in a while they say something humanitarian-wise, which has got some very good meaning. But spiritually, they rarely come out and say anything spiritually meaningful. But they laugh a lot. They have a nature. And that's considered spiritual. And in Hollywood, it's utterly pathetic what Hollywood considers a saint to be. If you've ever seen any of these films that are supposed to portray a saint, they're just idiots. They just don't know anything. It was The Last Temptation of Jesus, which was a very controversial film, but Jesus was just an idiot. He didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what he was going to say. He didn't know why he was doing it. He was very fickle. That's what they think to be a spiritualist means. On the other side, that movie was made Gladiator. And the person in Gladiator was very close to saintly character, as a real saint would be. Very determined, very truthful, very upstanding, so many things. A person of character, you see. Of course, not with a sword, but very much the same nature, aggressive against evil. So many things are actually attributes of a saint. And these other things, well, they're there, but they're not the primary characteristics. So why is cutting, crushing? Let's take and say he's supposed to be saint. He's supposed to be something wonderful. Okay, let's look at the fireman. The fireman in society. Everybody loves the fireman. To the rescue they come. 911, they're here with all kind of life support. They're here in fire. They're here in anything. How do they come? Giggling and laughing? No. They come pushing people out of their way with axes in their hands. Sometimes kicking right through doors. What? They're come here to destroy your house, to smash everything up? No. They've come here to save lives. And in order to save lives, they have to be aggressive. In order to save the whole property, they may destroy a part of that property. So, in a similar way, everyone is burning in the fire of material existence. They're drowning in an ocean of ignorance. And there just isn't a whole lifetime's worth of time with everybody. Somebody's very, very young, you might say, well, we can have time and just kind of bring them on slowly. But what if a person's old? How much time do they have left? And even the young person might not have much time left. Nobody knows how much time they have in this world. Every day young people die. Many of our friends, your grandparents are outliving them. They were devotees, yet their life expired in 50, 47. Tribhuvanov is maybe 46, 47, who died last month or something like that. My parents are going 80 now, your parents are over 80, whatever. There's no way to say because you're a devotee you live long. Because you're not a devotee you die young. There's no way to say. No, there's no way you can say. There have been great saints who only lived a few years. There have been great saints who lived a century and beyond. You cannot say how long one will live. So, when entering a place like Śrīla Prabhupada did, where there's just ignorance, here there was ignorance and nobody knew. Nobody knew anything about Kṛṣṇa and Lord Chaitanya, reincarnation. There was just another ignorance of the time, moral ignorance. Just another plane of ignorance. But in either case, both of these personalities, Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupada and our Śrīla Prabhupada, they entered a plane where ignorance prevailed, and they were very forceful in their preaching. When there were court cases in the time of our Prabhupada, he did not go, we're in the court. He said, we're in the court. Now get out our books and make the judge read every single page. And start reading our books. I guess he'd heard about those filibusters or whatever they do in Congress, where the guy takes the floor And if he doesn't pause for more than 45 seconds, he just keep on going. You know, a filibuster. Yeah, you can't stop them unless they stop themselves. Something, maybe he got the idea from that or something. But his idea was, it wasn't like, oh gee, we're in the court. Oh gosh. You know. He took that as a platform of battle to demonstrate that our knowledge is superior. God exists, the soul exists, the purpose of life. He wanted to demonstrate these things. He wanted to make them sit and listen. When books were being distributed, and went from everything from fist fights to court cases just over the airports alone, right? And then there was a section of devotees that came up like, this is ruining it, this is ruining it, this is ruining it, ruining. You see, we're out there aggressively and people don't like it, we're in their face. And they said, Prabhupada, most of these people simply throw their books in the garbage. Prabhupada said, they throw their babies in the garbage. What to speak of our books? So he wasn't so moved that some people were being turned off. That society, at that particular time, was a very pro-abortion society, aborting millions of children, killing millions of babies every year. If they're there and they're going to be born, that's your duty after that. End of story. And they were just killing these people out of what do you call it? They just don't want the responsibility for varieties of reasons. So they throw their children in the garbage. What to speak of our books. So he wasn't so concerned with that. You see. And indeed, a great deed was done. A great deed was done. There may be a section that just remember the rough edge of that aggressive preaching. But there are many people that can thank their lucky stars because of that rough edge of preaching. That was their initial contact and things happen. And then there's the unseen where you never see the result. You never see the result. The books went out. People held that most sacred literature even in their hand, took it home, put it on their shelf, passed it off to another person. It went around the used bookstore. So much good was done. But there was criticism. There was criticism to that. The scholars criticized Prabhupada, our Prabhupada. And where does his style come from, which we saw, those of us who are a little older, we saw his pushing nature, his unrelenting campaign, going, never stopping. Even he had this place. I mean, we'd probably just like pull up all the brakes, all the stoppers, and just camp down. He was given a $6 million building in Detroit and a budget to run the thing from the Ford family. And Walter Luther's granddaughter, two very, very big, influential and wealthy American families. He spent 4 nights in that ashram, 4 nights only. The bed spread on Prabhupada's bed cost $10,000. It's from somewhere in France or Europe. The wallpaper is $1,000 a yard throughout the whole building. Multi-million-dollar building. And it looks just like a temple on the inside. They brought all these artisans over from India in the 1920s. And they made the ballroom just like a big temple. And where the band used to play is 3 arches, where there's now 3 deity altars. And it's exact. You couldn't draw a better temple. It's just complete Rajasthani Vrindavan style. The molding, everything. The whole house. So if we were given that, it'd be like, we'd be all like packed up and zoop, moved in, moved over. But he didn't. He had such a campaign that he had to go on to much smaller places. That was being established. And he went on to other places and other places and other places. Very, very rigorous campaign. Never satisfied. This much is achieved, that's enough. This much is achieved, he took another step up. He went this far out on the limb. We managed to get out there with him. He just took us one more step out on the limb. And where did that come from? That was the manner of his guru, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, who always kept everybody so engaged and just kept expanding and expanding. From the example of his guru, our guru hated the word maintenance. Just maintaining. He hated that. He actually hated it. Just maintaining. You see. Although in the end he said, if you can just maintain what I've given, that will be an achievement. And we see that even that was hard to do. So we don't try to emulate the same thing. It's, in one sense, it's our spiritual weakness. We say that's not possible. But in his thinking, it was possible. In his Guru Maharaj's thinking, it was possible. So that's what separates us ordinary souls and really great souls. We can endeavor, we can do something with great endeavor and great work, but it seems to be mainly within our means. They, on the other hand, have the capacity to just go so far outside of their means, it's as if they were performing miracles. You see. But they're always telling us, you can do that also. They're always encouraging us. We can do that, because it's not a we. And they say it's not an I. It is a he. It is him. It is Kṛṣṇa. Prabhupada used to say, Kṛṣṇa can give us the world. Now we're on the verge of getting our temple going here very, very soon, our ashram. And last summer, I mentioned, if you caught it, we drew these plans up 3 different times on 3 different years. It never caught a toehold. And then I realized, because it wasn't big enough. We weren't going to get the go-ahead, the help from above, to build something small. Because that just wasn't going to suit the bill. So Kṛṣṇa has bigger plans, bigger designs in mind than we do. What's necessary on our part is the willingness and faith to cooperate. We always want to see, how much does Kṛṣṇa want me to do? Oh, I can do that, and go to that. And when it just seems endless, then that's more difficult for us. Maybe it's too big of a test. Like the first Germans who joined Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. After some months, when they came from Germany and they joined in India, then one day one of them came to Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta and said, generally in my country, we know our program 1 week, 2 weeks, even 1 month ahead. And we are scheduled for that. And we can do that. But here, I'm being told to do something. Some program, something. 1 hour before. So if you can let me know in advance, then I can be prepared for that. So then Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta says, I'm letting you know as soon as I'm informed. Meaning, as soon as that inspiration, as soon as that divine guidance came to him, what is our next move? He simply gives it. You see, and so in that a deep lesson, we cannot just be planned. Working with divinity doesn't mean it's just a blueprint. There it is. There are the books. People are into this now. We got the society. We got the books. We got the deities. Here's the acharya. We've got the patter. We've got the formula. That's it. No, that's not it. It's a living thing. It's a living thing. Living thing, well, that we say living thing. What is a living thing? Every living thing is a little bit different than the other. A living thing. We should give some thought to that. A living expression. So, anyway, the point was that what we found in Śrīla Prabhupada, his determination, his rigorous preaching, and all these things, that is driven by the example he found in his guru. So this is an important point. We get the example of what to do in Kṛṣṇa consciousness and what Kṛṣṇa consciousness is and all the things related. We get that primarily first from our guru, and then we may draw that from other saints and devotees, either much senior to us or even contemporaries of us, god brothers, god sisters. But my point is, this was not his own doing. He didn't just create this. He didn't just decide he was going on the war path. The person who decided we were going on the war path with Maya was Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupada. He was the one who decided at the turn of the last century, around the turn of the last century, seeing the situation, not just in Bengal. That was one side. He had a sword in one hand and axe in the other. With one side, he had to contend with the Sahajiyas, the Mayavadis, and even other Vaishnavas. It says here he slackened the worship of Narayan how does it say? Third, he was to minimize and slacken the worship of Narayan. We have some friends who are Sri Vaishnavas in India, many. And a couple of them are young, in their 20s, mid-30s or something. Very, very friendly to our ashram. Very learned, and they want to do things with this. If they read this, it would take a lot of explaining to minimize and slacken the worship of Narayan. They would be like, hold their ears and just run out, having heard the most sinful of things. And so it takes a deep understanding, or some deeper understanding, what it means to minimize and slacken the worship of the Supreme Lord, so as to allow the heart to enter devotion and love to enter devotion. Yes, rules have to be slackened. Every lesson a boy receives, a young girl or young boy or a young man, doesn't need to be prefaced with a scolding. Some scoldings are there, and other lessons, they are just learned. They don't need to be accentuated, brought out, and made something of. But so the point of that was that yes, everything, rules are necessary, but rules have a kickback. They have a kickback. They make people very, very rigid, and they sometimes make us bypass the goal, actually, or inattentive. I've mentioned this before. I know people, they're so strict they have never drank water outside of their house. They're so strict for what? Purity. Yet they remain caste conscious, which is what? Glaring impurity. Caste consciousness is impure consciousness. Not drinking water outside, always following a codicy, all these things are to become pure. But yet they're so rigid, yet they remain impure in their consciousness. They remain externally pure. Someone says, by following the four regulative principles, this is the path of purity. Every newborn child in the world automatically follows them all. They're vegetarian. They don't have any illicit activity. They don't gamble. And they don't drink. Take intoxication for the children. And there are many species of life that also follow those. Those four regular principles are not the principles of spirit. They're not principles of spiritual life. They're underlying. They're pure principles of material life. No intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meeting. This is a pure way of living. If you want to know what the pure principles of spiritual life are, then you have to study the 6 Goswamis, the Goswamis in this world, and the residents of Vrindavan in the other world. And then we understand what purity in spiritual life is. And purity in spiritual life is sometimes frowned upon in this world. Very much frowned upon. The gopis' activities are frowned upon according to the Vedic standards. They transgress the Vedic law. Paramour is not accepted in the Vedic scheme of things. Many things that we find in Goloka Vrindavan are not accepted in this world. So they cannot be imitated here. But the principle that they're based on, that we have to catch, and that is sacrifice. Sacrifice is a spiritual principle in the spiritual world. And that's not listed in the four regular principles, is it? Sacrifice. But that's the thing everybody is doing in Goloka. Everyone is sacrifice. Give to live. That die to live expression, you've heard that in Śrīla Maharaja's book? But either he or maybe Bhaktivinoda or someone, they also gave like a parallel, which is a little more palatable for many people, and that is called give to live. Give to live. Die to live is we are nothing. Of course, nobody's courting us for our money. We don't have any money. But it happens. Or flattery. Flattery, you see. We're given some words of praise which are nothing but flattery, and they're very, very unpleasant. There's some motive. Ego, motive. These things are absent in spiritual sacrifice. We cannot have a motive that we sacrifice or do something because we want to gain in return. It must be free from ego and free from motive. Mostly sacrifice in this world, same word, different plane. Gandhi performed a great sacrifice, but his plane of sacrifice was completely different than that of Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur, who renounced the kingdom. Gandhi could have been the king of India. He could have been the first prime minister of India. He renounced that. But it was all a political scheme of things, always motivated, a political scheme of things, not selflessly motivated. Actually, Gandhi was initially, from the beginning to his dying day, he was driven by an insult. He was insulted. If you've ever seen his biography, it began on a train in South Africa. He had a ticket to ride with the white folk, but because he was brown, he wasn't allowed. And that began his drive, a revenge, you see, to take down the whole British Empire from an insult, you see. So he sacrificed greatly, but this plane of his sacrifice, Śrīla Maharaj says in this, one of the films that we're releasing soon, similar, but outcome is completely different. Also, he classified Jesus there, much more profound, but still a different outcome. Many individuals having a similarity in the activity, but different outcome. Then what's the difference? The difference is within, motive within, conception within. That is what's important for the outcome. Some man buys 100 acres, goes up on the top of it, decides he's going to build a big hacienda, big log cabin, goes up there and cuts down all the trees and builds this nice home. And I've asked him why. He's doing it for his family. He's doing it for his children. They'll inherit in the future. He gets a karma for each and every tree he cuts down, for every bug that gets killed in the process of making the foundation. He gets a reaction for that because it is all selfish, whether it's himself, his family self, or his generations of family self. The devotees do another thing. They purchase a similar piece of property. They go into the woods and they cut down trees to make an ashram, to do things. And I've mentioned it several times. All these trees are benefiting. They're being cut down to clear space for the Lord's temple and the Lord's gardens. And then that wood body, dense as it is dried out and it's burned in the Lord's temple to heat the Lord's temple, to heat the devotees, to cook the Lord's prasadam. Every living entity who may be caught in the way of progress there receives some spiritual benefit, and those who do that receive no reaction whatsoever. No reaction. We used to say in a way back there, oh, you're a vegetarian, so you go into the garden and you take a head of lettuce and you tear his head off. Well, that's certainly better than tearing a goat's head off. The fact is, it's a lettuce head. And there will be a reaction within the material nature for that. It is not reaction-less or karma-free to be a vegetarian. The vegetable world also has life. Whether you picked it or whatever, the standard is anything done with the spirit of enjoyment has a reaction. And that even translates all the way to devotion, actually. We do acts of devotion, but we do them with an enjoying spirit. The reaction is we don't get the full benefit of doing them with a selfless spirit, you see. Not that we get a sinful reaction, but the reaction is you don't get the full reaction. Some people used to say, oh, I've criticized, they were critics of some of our guardians, Śrīla Maharaj, Śrīla Puri Maharaj, and others. And their comment was, well, I've been criticizing these people. Nothing ever happened to me. And my reaction was, well, what's happened to you is the worst thing imaginable, but you haven't, along with the reaction is you're not allowed to see what's happened to you. It'd be a blessing, it'd be a lesser effect on you if your nose fell off with leprosy, because you'd see, oh my God, what happened to me? And maybe you'd start to repent. A worse reaction would be you're not even allowed to see how you're being punished. And then that scenario, you get more money, you get more friends, you may even get more followers, all kinds of success. But the association of the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, that you don't get. And that's the greatest hell there is. Not to have their association and their service. There is no hell worse than that. That's the hell of all hells. So, different types of reactions come to different people. Sometimes I wish Kṛṣṇa had structured the world differently. As soon as you do something bad, a big rock just comes out of the head, sky, and bam, hits you in the back of the head. You'd think people would catch on then, you see. But they just blame it on something else. They wouldn't catch on. It obviously, actually, it's designed perfectly. It's the unseen hand of the law. The unseen hand of the law is there. And in the great journey of the soul, that works the best. Because if we got hit every time we did something bad, then there'd just be a fear about that dispenser of law. And then motivated by it, just let's try to outsmart him, or we can't do that, we're going to get banged by it. Some other motive would enter, and it would not lead to love and devotion and surrender to the Supreme Lord. It would lead to some other calculated spirit. So it's a perfect arrangement, you see. And Śrīla Prabhupada once said, I think he wrote it in his books, he said, there's no need to gloat about it, he said, because all the wrongdoers are punished to the letter of the word. It's a very, what is the word? It's a very, not profound, like heavy, it's a very grievous situation. All these things, there's some words that condense all those meanings. To the letter, to the T, the reaction of nature will make her claim. Payback, a reaction for each and everything. Even they've discovered it. For every action in this world, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I just went like this with my hand. There has to be that energy, push, everything. It just has to go into the universe. It has to go. And it has a reaction. I push this, it has to go around. Something had to move this way. It can't be perceived, but the physicists have shown us. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's a law of physics, one of the fundamental laws of physics. Yet, that's a good example of piles of books. I've got great knowledge. Can't put that piece of the puzzle together. If we are a scientific world, then we should think every action, equal and opposite reaction. So many things I do, so many things the nation does. Reaction. There will be some reaction. And try to understand how that reaction is. That is karma, what we call is karma, the reaction. So, this, like what I was saying early in the beginning, this fighting with Maya, fighting with opposing philosophies. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, because he was alone, because of his circumstances, he was not any less of a spiritual warrior, but because of his circumstances, he did not fight. Rather, he, don't misunderstand this, but he compromised. But no, not compromised. He tolerated. He had to deal with so many sahajiyas. But Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta took a vow never to come within 50 feet of a sahajiya. And once when some big, famous sahajiya came to see Bhaktivinoda, some means sophisticated type of sahajiya, not all of them are immoral in that way, but they're just philosophically corrupt. Big sahajiya came to see Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, and Bhaktisiddhānta offered his obeisances from some distance and went his way. And that man said to Bhaktivinoda, wasn't that your son? Yes, that was my foreson. Why he does not come? And simply he goes off. He said, no sir, he has taken a vow never to come within 50 feet of a sahajiya. So it looks as though Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, he had to tolerate. And then behind his toleration, he gave the full spirit, the full authority to his son. You fight these rascals to the last breath. In other words, he stood the guard for his son. And Bhaktisiddhānta, I forget the exact age, but he was so much fighting with the misconceptions in Jagannath Puri at a very early age. He was in his teens, teenager, that his life got to be in danger. And Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur decided to send him to Mayapur in Bengal. Maybe his late teens, early 20s. He was so rigorous in proving the truth, in proving the falsity of what many people say about Mahaprabhu and about the process of being a follower of Mahaprabhu. He was so adamant about proving the truth, you see. Now, if something is really, really at stake, you will never give in. You will never give in. If you know that one of your children is in this closet, it's sealed tight, there's only air to last so long, right? They're going to last 5.5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes and 29 seconds to get in the closet, right? There's 2 closets. You know he's in there because you put him in there or something, whatever. You know he's there. And then there's this closet. And the fire department wants to spend that 5 minutes getting in this closet. And they're by their whatever, they say he's here. You know. It's not a speculation. It's not a guess. It's not hearsay. You know it. Will you ever stop shouting at these people to stop what they're doing here and give attention to here? Because here lies the truth. Here lies eternal life. Not if you really know that boy is there. You'll never let up. No ordinary person will go, well, whatever. Open that one first. Well, no, it's finished. It's too late. There won't be time for a second. So this human form of life doesn't roll around like the 4 seasons. It comes around, and it doesn't come around for the jīva soul for bazillions of years. Forget even trillions. A long time before it comes again. So now is the important time to know the truth. And he's seeing these people becoming great philosophers of illusion of various types. Mayavad, materialists, Sahajiya, all these things. And he was fighting with it since his earliest childhood. Up to the point his life was in danger. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent him off somewhere else. But that same spirit was there in him throughout his life. But also, it is said, with the softness of Vrindavan within. He was not fighting. He was not hard with his disciples, with those who had joined him. He was only hard and fighting with opposing elements. Those things which were a threat to the devotee community, to the mission of Mahaprabhu. Very soft. He was like, how is it said? He was like I think it's an expression, he was like a rose at home and a lion on the prowl. A lamb at home, very affectionate, very kind, very soft. But when addressing that world of all anti-sentiments, he was as ferocious as a lion. So, over the years, I've seen people, they will try to emulate a quality of a great personality, be it the heavy one, the heavy quality, or that very, very sweet and very, very kind and generous quality. They'll just try to act that, thinking that, well, this is what it means to be a saint. You act like this. But as Govinda Maharaj said in relation to Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj, he said, all of you, meaning most of the foreigners, you only saw Guru Maharaj in his paramahaṁsa-bhāva. Means you came to him when he was over 80 years old. He was already old. His whole life of preaching, devotional practices, and everything. And you're dealing with him and his loftier realizations. He's revealing many things. And you know what I'm saying? It's called paramahaṁsa-bhāva. He said, but we grew up with him. And sometimes we would fight with each other. Who would take him his prasadam? We were mortified to go in his room even. He was so strict. He was so austere. And he said he was so heavy that we used to say, no, I took the prasadam last time. You take it. You take it. Now, I don't think that meant he was yelling and screaming at them. But just the nature of the gravity of where he was in his practice was a little scary for them. You see, a little scary. You see. So certainly I'm not like that, but I know sometimes I scare certain people in the community. I've heard that the mothers are afraid to talk to me, or afraid to ask a question, or different things. So I don't mean to be, like that with any particular individual or group of individuals. But our task really is an important one. And someone may feel they have plenty of time to play because you're young. Well, that's your illusion. You don't know how long your life is. Now, I'm already 50-ish, pushing 60. I already know I don't have much time to play. I only have time to be serious. So sometimes I'll express some very passionate dissatisfaction with some plane of something which is not just right on the money, as we say. It's just not on the main concern, you see. So in Śrīla Maharaja's life, there was a period of time, and it was a long period of time, according to Govinda Maharaj. He said, and not what you're seeing, he said. So anyway, the point is that we sometimes heard examples. Well, Śrīla Guru Maharaj is like this, or Śrīla Puri Maharaj is like that. But I always remember that. Yes, we contacted these personalities in their senior-most years. And in reality, for example, many people were saying, Śrīla Maharaj, he stayed in the Dham. There was some tendency like that, backwards pushing, all these things. They simply omitted the years he was all over India, preaching, door to door, office to office, out there collecting money for Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, arguing with people and pressing them to donate. Prabhupada, Madhava Maharaj, Śrīla Maharaj, and I think one other, Goswami Maharaj, they were doing house programs in Bombay. Prabhupada was an organizer, the connections. They had it, Śrīla Maharaj was the speaker. Someone else was the kirtan leader. Madhava Maharaj, he got him on the donations. Right? That's why our Madhava Maharaj is named Madhava Maharaj. He's in the finance department. So different devotees, they were doing different things. They weren't just sitting in their bhajan kutirs, being all mellow and sitting back. They were very active, doing many things. And Prabhupada, he was a householder, earning money. He invented some specific medicines. The money for those medicines went directly to the mission. He had to maintain his family, but he did something, went straight to the mission. So either they were brahmacharis or sannyasis or householders. They were all doing very rigorous things in the service of their mission. And those who were even younger than that, they were studying. There were many students in Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta's mission. Starting at, 9 years old means what? 3rd grade? No. Yeah, 3rd, 4th grade, beginning in 4th grade. And they went to schools of the time in Bengal. They studied language. They did so many things. Then they got older and they did things. He had several boys in his mission go through school from the age of 9. And they're still there. Some of them are still there. Shanta Maharaj joined when he was 9 years old. He must be 90-something now. And Babaji Maharaj, who we call Babaji Maharaj, he was also like 11 years old, I believe, when he joined. But everyone rigorously in their capacity, serving. And then a lifetime of that, then paramahaṁsa-bhāva. Paramahaṁsa-bhāva, that mood that we see in the senior-most Vaishnavas, you cannot just imitate that in your youth. You cannot imitate that in your mid-years. You see, you cannot imitate it. Say you joined when you're old. You can't just imitate that. It is not about imitation. There is a process. There is a process. And that process is one of serving. And what are they doing? What is Prabhupada doing? What is Madhava Maharaj doing? What is Śrīla Maharaj doing? What is Śrīla Puri Maharaj doing? What are they all doing? Prabhupada came to America. What is he doing? He's serving, actually. They're all serving the order of their guru. At the end of the day, that is the highest truth. Not Gopi Bhav, not this, not that, not so much Gyan. At the end of the day is, have we understood that we have come And we are offering ourselves in a life of service to our guardians and to our divine masters. And if we have, and we live that life, then these other higher truths, they're a part of that. They're a part of that, just like the freedom that comes along with being born in this country, but even more so, perfectly structured so. You're born in this country and you got an American passport, you are free to come and go out the borders of this country as you like. You are free to vote. There's so many freedoms. You are born here. So when we are born there means when we come to that platform of surrender, that we are to serve our masters, then all these freedoms, all these higher, so-called higher truths, they come to us just like the freedoms of birth in this country. They are automatically achieved. Just like with bhakti comes mukti. If you have bhakti, you'll get mukti. You don't have to work for mukti. Just work for bhakti, you get mukti. But it doesn't stop there. And that was the mission of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. And if you study his last instructions in these things, which are what? The sutra of his whole life's teaching, means he has an example and a teaching that's kind of like fluffed out over many years. And then in his last days, what does he do? He gives a summary, concise teaching he gives again and again and again. And he says repeatedly over his last days, the supreme goal of life, what are we looking for here? The supreme goal of life is to become the servants. He says the supreme goal of life is to become specks of dust on the lotus feet of the servants of Rupa and Raghunath. So that's an expression, that specks of dust, it is a poetic expression of sorts in the Vaishnava world. It means the most insignificant associate, the most insignificant servant, the most insignificant seeker of their divine blessing. Like dust, we are clinging on the bottom of their feet. That is the supreme wealth of life. So when I wrote this article 1 year ago, many people were, well, the supreme goal of life is to become a gopi. So they were thinking, now I'm thinking of Shanta Rasa and becoming a particle of dust. And then they wanted to argue about that, you see. But without first entering into that desire, then there's no question of becoming a gopi or a shaki or a vatsali or nothing. Because that is the desire of every single eternal resident of Goloka Vrindavan. All have as their deepest desire to become a speck of dust at the feet of the Lord's servitors. Of course, when you get up into the highest realm of the Radharani and others, it's there, but it takes on a different shape. So did you follow what I'm saying? So that was the mission of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, to structure service. Push all these things away, all this ignorance, defeat the ignorance, burn it like the jungle, torch it, burn it, destroy it. Clear the ground, the fertile ground, and plant the seeds of real devotion, based in a life of service, not in a life of gyan, knowledge seeking. Not in the life of a spiritual aspiration, I want to be. First deserve, then desire. It will come like sun. We want the sun to rise, we don't want the sun to rise. It's just irrelevant. Simply wake up at sunrise. The sun comes of its own accord. We have no control over that. So you have no control over what you want to be there in the spiritual world in that way. But by qualification, then you have control over what you want to be. By qualification means you develop a particular spiritual desire, and that may be fulfilled. But without the qualification, it never becomes fulfilled. So his mission was to qualify people, to create an environment. And that's what we're trying to do here also. Why? I don't need a bigger room. Much bigger. We certainly don't need a bigger house. We figured out how to divide the upstairs. Even Vishnu Maharaj could have his own room. I look at others, and I go, well, there's just no facility. And in time, the girls will think, oh, they're not welcome to serve in the ashram. They can't come to the ashram and serve. That's not true. The ashram is for everyone, but it has to have enough accommodating space for everyone. And here, such a proximity doesn't work. And people cannot live too cloistered, too close. These sannyasis and brahmacharis here are living in a room barely big enough for half a person. They're all stuffed in there. It's not even got proper ventilation. So that's that, to give many people an opportunity to serve and also to preach. Why did Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta build big temples? Why did Prabhupada build big temples? Because, as he said, if we simply sit here in this little hut, no one will take us seriously. Put in a 700-foot road, put in a $500,000 ashram, and do these things, and people will stop and slow down and eventually turn in the driveway. They'll take it seriously. You see. Not that preaching just means big buildings, but the fact is, in order to serve, in order to do things, that is a part of success in this world, doing things like that. So we want to create a facility for people to serve. We want to create a facility that impresses people that, yes, a life of devotion, a life of service is something wonderful, you see. We want to create something that within their glance, it is attractive. Most people aren't attracted to being a sadhu or a sannyasi who's not even supposed to wear a shirt or shoes and just take cold bath in the river. You won't get many. Even the sannyasis get to live in these nice places that are built all over the world. Still, it's hard to get people attracted to that way of life. But ultimately, we're not to attract people to become sannyasis, but to become devotees. So some facility is required. So that is why we want to build an ashram. To create a better facility for service, for the service of the deity, and to engage others in that service. And that was the mission of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. It was not for liberation. It was not for material enjoyment. It was not for enjoying the leelas of Kṛṣṇa, Mahaprabhu. That is also a danger, to become the self-enjoyer of the Lord's leelas. It is not like a TV program for our entertainment that the Lord performs His pastimes. Actually, His pastimes are performed for His entertainment, and everybody there is entertaining the Supreme Lord. It may be attractive to those devotees also, and indeed it is to all devotees. His pastimes are attractive, but they are not meant for our pleasure. On His side, He may be performing them for our pleasure, but the devotee never feels, oh, the Lord is performing for my pleasure. No, He is always trying to please the Supreme Lord. And that is especially, just rule the other one out here completely. Even though it has a truth in the spiritual world, Krishna does things for your pleasure. Just get that out of your mind here, because this is not the spiritual world. Do everything for Krishna's pleasure. That's what has to be established. We have to rub that stone. This material world is like a rock, and we have to rub it so much on that point that it becomes a groove. We are for Krishna's pleasure. We are for His pleasure. He's not for our pleasure. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta, when he greeted the British Emperor, whatever it was, the governor, he put up a sign, God bless the king. God is in the superior position. A few years ago, our friends down in Washington, D.C., they put a Ratha Yatra in a parade, and their banner was, Hare Krishna salutes America. I was like, oh, come on. When you go in the military, the lower officers salute. Higher officers don't. Some they will for their own men. They'll give a like gotcha salute. The other guys don't give you like this. They snap, salute, and the officers go, gotcha. The lower salutes. So they had Krishna, God, saluting America. For what? Even it's on the money. God bless America. They should have had Ratha Yatra with a big sign. God bless America. That would have been also charming for the population, and also it would be in holding with the dignity of the reality which they represent, the truth they represent. So Preaching means to attract people and do things, but it doesn't mean to sacrifice the dignity of the Supreme Lord. It doesn't mean to do that. It doesn't mean to compromise his position, you see. But it means to present his position in a way that is palatable for people, or accessible. You can start out preaching Krishna consciousness on such a level, people will just look at you and shake your head like, can't do it, don't know what it is, can't understand it. So that's not a good preacher is one who knows a particular level and then can give that God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. So, in this, this is the, well, it was a few days ago, but this is the Tirobhav. This is the observance of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta's departure from this world, which was about 5:20 or something in the morning. And Śrīla Maharaj told us, and it was recorded in other places, that in all of his mutts, at least the ones in Orissa and Bengal, Mayapur, Calcutta, and Orissa, these three main ones, all the clocks stopped at the same time on that day when he left the world. And Śrīla Maharaj was one of the disciples that was with him just moments before he departed from this world. And that news was such a news of the time. It was a very, very big, it was a very profound moment. And thousands of people came at that time, that morning, to that Badbazar temple in Calcutta. And the railway arranged a whole train to carry the transcendental body of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta to Mayapur. A whole train was arrived. And in each stop along the way, the train would stop at the station. And hundreds and in some places thousands of people would come, offer flowers. And everyone wanted that last sight of that great soul, that great personality. We have a video of Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj describing that. And then the train reached, I guess it was, I don't know if it came to Krishnanagar or it came to Navadvip side, but at a point they were approaching the temple, Chaitanya Mission, and he was describing that to some extent. They were bringing the body of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta there, and the two groups, big Sankirtan groups, came together there, and he kind of left his conversation short at that point, but you could tell that was quite an emotional event when all these disciples of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta came together at that point, and then he was placed in samadhi. So this day, which was actually a couple days ago, is the day for remembering his contribution. And as far as missionary work, as far as the sannyas ashram, as far as the mantras that you chant, and almost everything, the deities that you worship, all these things, these are all chosen. They're all chosen, selected, brought down to us, and given to us by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. He, of course, gave them to his disciples, and his disciples carried them out throughout the world. So it's an important thing to remember that his contribution, what he did, if he didn't do it, then none of us would be sitting here today. People like to remember Srila Prabhupada alone, but actually it's a great mistake. They should remember him in relation to his guru, for whom he did everything, on whose order he came to the Western world, on whose order he wrote books, on whose order he preached in English. So, not just one, but many great personalities Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta inspired. Behind Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj, one of the greater saintly personalities that we've known in this last century. Certainly one of the more lofty preachers of Krishna consciousness in the English language. A great devotional scholar. Who made him? Who produced him? You know, who is the spiritual parent of that grand personality? That is Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. Then many of you had your experience to some extent with Śrīla Puri Maharaj. Such a revered, saintly, gentle person. A stalwart preacher. So filled with affection for all the devotees. Where did he come from? He came from the fold of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. Our Prabhupada. A world-class preacher, spreading Krishna consciousness far and wide across every continent, from Russia to the tip of South America, to the tip of South Africa, up and down all around. Where did he come from? Who convinced him? Who caught his attention? Not just attention. Who commanded his absolute surrender? That was Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. And many others. Many, we don't even know their names. They came and gone, some of them before we were born. And then in the 50s, some of them left the world. We've heard some of their names and seen a few of them here and there. Who attracted them? Who brought them all together? And that was Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. So we should try to have some feeling. Well, actually, we cannot praise Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. I was thinking of that earlier. Praise, I can praise the children. I can praise a disciple. Oh, you have done good, you are this, you are that. If you analyze praise, someone in a superior position, someone who's more senior, by whatever that seniority is measured, by age, by knowledge, by achievement, can authenticate someone else for their activities. In other words, the university gives the degree. Those who are the holders of all the knowledge will give you your degree. You see. So then, what is the meaning of glorifying those who are superior to us? How do we glorify them? We can shout jais and a few things like this. You see. But is that an authentication? Is that a verification of their greatness because the lower class is great? No, that's the folly of the world. People who have no standard herald somebody as great. People that had no idea of spiritual life think Gandhi was a saint. As soon as you enter into the saints, they'll all tell you Gandhi was a politician. He wasn't a saint. There are no saints in India. Even the Mayavadis or whatever, who considered Gandhi a saint. He was a politician. But the politicians considered him a saint. You see. So are the politicians to be the measure of what's a saint? You follow? Just like some people would say about us. Well, they would say about me, or they would say about Tripurari Maharaj 10 or 15 years ago. They would doubt what we've done. They would doubt our allegiance to Śrīla Prabhupada. Now, if they were the only people I had to listen to, it might have got to me after a while. But fortunately, I was listening to an opinion infinitely greater than theirs. And that was Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj, Śrīla Puri Maharaj. So it didn't matter what they said. It didn't matter what the lower ranks said. It mattered what the higher ranks had to say. And they thought well of our activities. They not only gave direction and support, they also gave the cry of bravo. Bravo means well done, good, march on. So really then it didn't matter what others who weren't anywhere near as realized as they were, what their opinion was in one sense didn't matter. Although we care, but ultimately it didn't matter. But what the higher Vaishnava thinks of us, well, that matters. That matters the most, you see. So we cannot just, our words don't confirm their greatness is what I'm trying to say. But there is a way to confirm their greatness. And ultimately, I'm trying to find a way to express this, but it's a little hazy. What I mean to say, and Vishnu Maharaj, Sripad Vishnu Maharaj, he summed this up recently in a year or so in an email to someone, that the affirmation, the confirmation of the greatness of our Guru is our own realization. That is the greatest glorification we can offer our spiritual master, our guru, is to come up to the standard of Krishna consciousness ourselves. There is no higher tribute that we can pay to him. Simply shouting jais, jais, that's nice, that's a cultural aspect. And that's part of that process. You see, say jais to the great souls, and that's good for us. But we cannot just give lip service to the great souls. We actually have to rise to the hour of need and come up to that standard. At least we should endeavor for that. So, that is a confirmation of their greatness. What is it produced in us, you see? What has it produced in us? Śrīla Prabhupada used to say, the guru will be judged by the quality of his disciples. Not by his own self. The quality of his disciples. You judge the tree by what? You judge an apple tree by what? The fruit. Not the bark, not the shape. I mean, we have this one coconut tree, you've all seen it, it grows by the Goshala. It grows right there at the Goshala in Divinity Gardens. It doesn't even have a third of its trunk left. It's completely rotted and eaten out. It produces the sweetest coconuts on the property. And some of the biggest. You know the tree I'm talking about, the one on my sidewalk. If you look at the trunk, every time I do, the conversation is, well, we better cut this down. This tree's over. But when I remember the quality of the coconuts that it produces, it's like, whatever the trunk looks like, the fruits are the best. So you don't judge the tree by the trunk, by the branch, even by the leaf. The ultimate is the fruit. You can estimate something about a guru by his own behavior and everything like that. But the real proof is the student. What he produced. What is the fruit? That is a measure. Maybe not the only measure, but it's a big one. It's an important measure. So again, this is the day for glorification of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. And we must think, his greatness is so great that he produced a basket of those greats. He produced Śrīla Prabhupada. He produced Śrīla Puri-Maharaj. He produced Śrīla Maharaj. And many more great stars. Wow, this tree, the root of the tree of the modern missionary work in the world is Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. And he is drawing his energy from Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura is the life energy, the internal guru of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. And then he has expressed that in his mission, and the fruits are there. So many great realized souls have come forward. It's not that just Prabhupada came down from the spiritual world. The defect in that thinking is it negates the whole parampara, the whole tree, and the whole establishment of Bhaktivinoda and Bhaktisiddhānta. That thinking. Prabhupada was born the pure devotee. That negates anything, just like he was pure. That's it. He was pure. He just came here. It's just a leela. Nothing else matters, and he just did it. There's a defect in that, because it just leaves you not thinking anything about the Param Guru, his Guru, Bhaktivinoda, and these things. They become then in the scheme of things a few songwriters. They wrote a few songs. They built a few temples. And that's the end of their story. It's not the end of the story. We are their story. We are the living part of their story. And if we are living in relation to that heritage, we are living strong. We are living full. But if we are cutting off the roots, then we are sure to die in time. If we cut off the roots of what we are, then we're sure to perish in the future. And I see that as a modern defect in the Krishna consciousness movement in many places, not all places, but in many places. They have cut themselves off from the root of what they are. When Jayapataka Maharaj reported to Śrīla Prabhupada that the road in Mayapur had blocked but had stopped the floodwater of the Ganga, giving them enough time to complete the Goshala 1 year. And the way he phrased it, he wrote back and says, the road, Bhaktisiddhānta Road, has held back the floodwaters of the Ganga and has enabled us to finish the road in time. Śrīla Prabhupada's reply was nothing about the flood. He said Yes, you are correct. We are always saved by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Please go on glorifying Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, and I think he mentioned in our acharyas, and we will always be saved. He didn't mention the water or the gosha. So it's not that this is just our opinion. No, it was expressed by Śrīla Prabhupada throughout his Krishna consciousness here in the West. All right, I've taken enough time today. Guru Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Shri Siddhanta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Bhaktivinoda Swami, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Guru Maharaj ki jai. Shri Bhakti Puri Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Shri Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura ki jai. Guru Śrīla Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Hari Hari Bol.